Hi everybody, Dr. Dan here. So the module for this week is called Intermediate Prompt Engineering, but in some sense that's kind of just for a lack of better terminology. All I mean by that is we're moving in some sense beyond that basic three-part formula that I've shared with you already, where we defined a role, context, and genre for our prompt that we're using with either ChatGPT or Gemini or text generator, large language model chatbot of your choosing. So, this week we're just thinking about how can we move beyond that kind of strict, formulaic uh, prompt style and do something different. So I have, a little article for you in Canvas and some suggestions here as well. There's a lot we can do. I mean, you can go really chaotic and just have weird conversations with the chat bots and ask them to do lots of different things. Ask them to take on the role of Abraham Lincoln and try to have a conversation with it as if it were Abe Lincoln, right? I mean, you really kind of stretch I guess that's not that wild, but stretch your imagination and do strange things. Um, in with what the article suggests in particular is asking, this is a kind of crossover feature of large language model chatbots, is basically you can use one to write a prompt for another or use one to write a prompt for itself. So some of the suggestions in the article are like ask Gemini to generate three prompts for Gemini in which you would then input those prompts back into it. You could really speed up content production this way. Another thing you could do is write cross-platform. So ask Gemini to produce a prompt, write a prompt for its image generation. So specify, write a prompt for an image generator that does X or Y or Z. And then it will help you spin up that content and maybe provide some generate some ideas for you that will help you get a more accurate prompt. Maybe, right? Not all the time and not in every case, and it kind of you can get some mixed results here. So by intermediate prompt engineering, I just mean we're moving beyond that three-point model and we're going to experiment a little bit more and see what else we can do. So using things like quotations, you can use references or templates. Insert link or insert an image. Say do something like this or follow this formatting, follow this style. Um, and and indeed you'll be doing something probably similar to that for this first mashup assignment where it's do in the style of X, in the style of Y writer, Z writer, produce so and so. So just for some examples, right? There's a wonderful poem I like by Pablo Neruda. It's Oda a la Papa, Ode to a Potato, right? Kind of a poem in celebration of, earthy, comes right from the ground, and it's reminds us of grandmother and gives us life and how many things you can. Potatoes are amazing, right? So Oda a la Papa, but you know, ask Gemini to write a poem in the style of Pablo Neruda, similar to Oda a la Papa, but make it about the water bottle, right? Really not creative tonight. That's not particularly interesting, but you can see what we've done there. It's like in the style of a particular writer, given some genre, now generate some new content. We did an example of this in one of my classes. This was about a year ago, actually. It was the digital writing class. We were reading Ian Bagost's work on procedural rhetoric, and so we said, in the style of Taylor Swift lyrics, write a song with a verse, chorus, verse structure um, about Bagost's procedural rhetoric. And I thought it was fairly successful at doing this. It kind of captured the key ideas of that fairly heavy theoretical piece, and it did it in some passable pop song, verse, chorus, verse structure. Anyway, So what we're looking at here with this is we're moving beyond that's those strict limitations and just saying let's experiment a bit with the large language model tools and see if we can get them to do what we want them to do. And so some tips at this stage would be that recursivity. So with the text bots, you can ask for revisions. Imagine I input a prompt. I say, just as I've done, write a poem in the style of Pablo Neruda, similar to Oda alla Papa, but the subject should be about the green grass in May. And I get some result, and there's a particular feature of it that I identify that I am dissatisfied with. So now I can ask very simply, I can say, do it again, but now use instead the rhyme scheme A, B, B, A, and see if it's able to do that. Sometimes yes, right? So actually having these um, almost like conversations, right, in which you can use very casual language. Do it again, but change this element of it. Revise it in such a way. Change the style, change the subject. Do it in a different format. Change the rhyme scheme. We can ask for a revision on because within an instance, within a window, there is a certain amount of memory that's retained through the conversation. The technology companies, they gather up all this data and they do all sorts of interesting things with it. But every time you open up a new window, the essentially we go back to it's called a static model. We reset to what the base functionality of the program is, right? It's not actively developing new memories as it goes along. It's a static, stable model that we're always tapping into. But within the instance of your window, it has a fairly large character memory. I don't remember exactly how many characters, but it's in the order of 10 or 20,000 or something like that. You have to fact check me there. I'm not sure, but it has a certain amount of memory within the instance of the window. So if you ask it to say do it again, but now in the style of Shakespeare, it should be able to do that pretty readily. Um, do it again, but AABB rhyme scheme, and so on and so on. And it should be able to do that. Although specifically with the rhyme schemes, I've run into some roadblocks where it just seems to refuse to do it, and I've wondered why that was. If it's just couldn't. I was asking it to do something impossible, maybe, but I didn't think so. Or maybe it ran out of it's like reached a certain limit of a computational threshold where it's like it would take too much power to or too much time to run this again. Um, I'm not sure exactly why there's sometimes you reach what I would identify as basically a point of stubbornness where it just won't listen to the input and it's won't complete the task for you. But that's fairly few and far between. But I have run into that situation a few times where it's kind of like hit a direct roadblock and the platform refuses to do it. In the same vein, with that kind of conversational, active, almost this dialogic relationship you're developing with the chatbot in the terms of that window of a single instance, anyway. Um, you can make corrections if the chatbot makes some mistake. You can correct it and ask it to take a step back and try again given the correction. You can give it samples, do something that is like this, particularly with image generation that seems to work well, but also with text generation. Here is something I want you to use this style of formatting, use this style of language. Fairly successful at doing that. And there's something to be said too about what are its capabilities in terms of not every author, not every artist is cataloged in the database, but it is a very large training set. So if you imagine everything that's on Project Gutenberg, everything that's on the MIT Classics archive, tons and tons of, every book that's been scanned by Google, every book that has a digital version offered by Google is cataloged in this, became part of the training set. So it's a surprising amount of to the point of very obscure writers, like I mentioned, the rhetorician Ian Bogost, who's right. It's not like that's a name like Hemingway, where it's a kind of household. Even some of the works are in the public domain now. Everyone knows Hemingway. Ian Bogost is a great guy and a really important rhetorical scholar, but there's a small kind of percentage of the general population that's read his work on procedural rhetoric, and but then again, he's a public figure in some sense, so there's a degree to which that wide publication and promulgation of your ideas, and then that's combed and scraped by the large language models and become part of the training set. Okay, so I'm just rambling a little bit here. It's fun to talk about, but basically, have fun, experiment, check out that article. Some power ups for your prompt engineering. That basically the idea there is they're talking about, okay, you can use Gemini to create prompts. It's meta, right? So you're using the AI chatbot to create a prompt for the AI chatbot and then feed it back into itself and see what happens. So we're kind of doing some um, moving beyond that basic 3 point model that I shared with you to try some other things. But really, it's, don't be afraid to experiment, have some fun, be a little bit chaotic. Um, I like to kind of push the limits and see what it's capable of. And I think that that's all fair. And what we should be doing is testing these things out and trying new ideas and seeing what kind of results that we get, and then analyzing the extent to which certain techniques or strategies are successful and which are not. All right. Good luck out there and have fun, everybody.